Welcome, everyone. It's Tuesday, May 26, 2026, and welcome to today's AI podcast. The real AI shock is cost, control, and who gets replaced. We just started live. We're going to wait for a minute or two, let people come in, and then we'll kick everything off. Otherwise, it's myself and my good friend Achilles here.
Hey, guys.
So, it's been an interesting week. Lots of good stories, lots of kind of stuff popping up on AI cost shock, bunches of good stuff. But anyway, talk amongst yourselves. Everyone out there, go grab your coffee, water, whatever you need, and we'll let some people come in and then kick it off in about a minute or two.
All right.
You mentioned last week that you were setting up a new custom agent or a custom AI something.
Yeah, so that's
going. Has it been released yet, or are you still working on it?
That's the work that I'm doing right now locally.
Okay.
In order to get that right, I have to make sure it works for me with the proper rules, and then I can take those rules and I can move them into a LoRa adapter, and I can put that on top of the model that we choose. So pretty much the workflow is you choose base model, put base model through as many scenarios as you possibly can where it makes mistakes, capture mistakes, create always and only rules, push those rules through the training, and then it makes sure that it doesn't make those mistakes in production.
So is that like creating the .md file?
No. The .md file is a set of task instructions, right?
Yeah.
So I'd make a task.md being like, I want you to build me a website. It's a really big build. It's going to exceed your context, right? So I want you to create a task.md first, which tells you every single step you have to use from idea to completion, and then work through that checklist, right? You're just giving it like memory.
So what's the don't make this mistake again file? What do you call that?
System prompt. So it lives in two places in this context.
Okay.
In this context, what I'm doing is I'm creating a massive system prompt, which tells the model always do and always don't, right?
Okay.
Always do, close
away
this.
from and towards. Brilliant.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then once that's large enough, I'm going to take that and I'm going to convert it into synthetic training data where I pretty much put it through Claude or a large model. And I say, okay, here's this system prompt and here are all these examples. For every one example, give me 200, right? Of other ways, edge cases, this rule could be broken. And then you have a very large file, big JSON file. And then you take that, you spin up big GPUs, and you train your model on that set of new rules so it no longer makes those mistakes. And then ideally, if you do it well enough and you do it long enough with enough epochs and so on, the model will then take that as its natural behavior, and you won't need a system prompt. It'll just listen.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, let's kick things off. For everyone out there today, you'll notice there's a QR code on the side. If you'd like to support us in the podcast, go ahead and scan it. Otherwise, in the chat, I'll just post a quick link so you can help us out and support us in what we're doing. And then we'll kick things off and let's go. Okay, so it's Tuesday, May 26, 2026, and welcome to today's AI podcast. The real AI shock is cost, control, and who gets replaced. AI is starting to feel less like a promise and more like a pressure cooker. This week's AI headlines are really about what happens when AI agents, start to step inside real systems. So what happens when AI stops being sold as a product miracle and starts showing up as a bill, a boss, a buyer, and a replacement plan before people have agreed who's actually in control? The real AI shock this week is not that technology is getting smarter. We all know it is. It's that the cost, control, and human consequences are finally becoming visible. In an article from Fortune magazine, Microsoft reports exposed that the AI cost problem, the tech is more expensive than paying human employees. Shock there. The promise that AI automatically saves money is really starting to crack because every automated action still has a price, and it's price that's becoming more and more significant and less easier to hide. From the legal magazine JD Supra, Agentic Payments Who Clicked Buy, the article gets to the issue and makes it even sharper because once AI agents can purchase, approve, and transact, the real question is no longer what they can do, but who gave them permission. Then there's a labor story that turned personal in an article from Business Insider. A productivity startup is laying off 22% of the company to create $1 million salary bands. Please hire me, because AI may not replace everyone at once, but it's already repricing work, compressing teams, and concentrating leverage around fewer and fewer people. And finally, from Anthropic's own blog, Project Glasswing, an initial update points to the deeper trust problem. Because if AI is moving into security, finance, work, identity, and decision-making, trust is no longer a brand message. It's the permission layer. So the question being posed today, kind of uncomfortable, but really necessary, are we building AI systems that serve people, or are we building systems that quietly decide which people, costs, risks, and mistakes become acceptable? You know, at first glance, all these stories look like separate headlines. The thing is, they're not really. Together, they show that AI is crossing a threshold. It's no longer just a software story or a model story or technology story. It's becoming an infrastructure story, a control story, a labor story, and a trust story all at once. The cost shocks tells us that AI has real physical and financial weight. The agent story tells us AI is moving from answering questions to taking action. And the labor story tells us the first wave may not be mass replacement, but quiet compression and repricing. And then there's the trust story that tells us the faster AI enters high consequence systems, the more governance becomes the real permission layer. So the bigger narrative for the last 7 days is this: AI is moving from capability into consequences, and the consequences are where the real fights begin. Today's in our AI podcast, we'll break down what happened, what most people are missing, and why this week's AI stories are really about 4 uncomfortable questions. Who pays for AI? Who controls it? Who gets compressed or replaced by it? And who's still trusted enough to let it deeper into the system that runs our lives? Achilles, welcome to the program. Good to see you again. Interesting set of stories this week. What are your thoughts around any favorites, anything popping up from where you are on your side of the pond?
I love that people are realizing that the way we're currently running AI is stupid. And maybe it was necessary, right? As we begin, like we needed the massive 1 trillion parameter dense models. But with the rise of MOEs and consumer hardware coming up pretty well, you can do this yourself, guys. Like, at least to a great extent, you can do this 85-90% of the time. Your own hardware can support your own AI models. And then you can not be so worried about these massive data centers. So, Lewis, the data centers that are around me, have been being built for, I don't know, past year or so, give or take. Mm-hmm. I just saw the cooling towers on one of them, and I almost freaked out, man.
What? It looks like a nuclear power thing.
I mean, but made of aluminum, coming off the side of a building. Like, it's going to be so hot, and my area is already really humid and hot, and that's actually really like freaky, especially because this one's maybe half a mile from my house. So
yeah, I mean, they did the analysis. I'm in Salt Lake City, Utah, and they did the analysis on the huge Mongo data center that's here. They think it might raise the local temperature by 5 degrees.
That's insane,
right? Minimum, right? Because of just the heat output, let alone the noise and all this stuff. So I think it's interesting. People are starting to say, hey, we need an environmental study before you put that sucker up.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I mentioned in the last podcast and the one before, it's kind of blown up the whole political thing around data centers worldwide, not just the US. And you brought up a really interesting point that, you know, we have thousands and thousands of data centers in the US, and China's got, I think you mentioned like 300 or something, like not many.
Not many.
So it's like, it's not as if we're in this massive crisis that they're going to overtake us anytime soon. But even so, the size of the data centers they're projecting to put up, these aren't, you know, just like a block. These are like really humongous things.
Yeah, the ones that we're looking at in this area, just because land is so expensive, are a little bit smaller. I hear the ones out west are outrageous. The one I was reading about was the one that's going to be built in Nevada, outside of Vegas.
Yeah,
that's like potentially the largest structure in the United States. It's, I'm talking, it was like 150 million or 1,000, I have no idea, gallons of water daily in the middle of a desert. That it doesn't seem to make a lot of sense how we're going about this. So that tells me gold rush, right? There will be some sort of correction on these things. I really hope the price of GPUs these models, understand that like Quen can do most of what you're doing. Like you're using a rocket ship to go down the street for 85% of cases, 90% of cases. And I think once we realize that, there'll be a massive just offloading of all these GPUs and such, and things will get really cheap. And then you'll be able to do that, I guess.
The one in Nevada, they said, is 7.2 million square feet of space across a 2,000-acre footprint. Oh my God! Power. It's 2,000 acres and needs 650 megawatts. But it is going to be powered, apparently, they say, by 100% renewable energy, featuring advanced green cooling technologies, just so that people won't get bent out of shape, I guess.
Say that.
And then there's other major campuses in Nevada. One is the Vantage Data Center in Reno's Story County. That's a 3,224 megawatt hyperscale campus being built at the moment. There's the EdgeCore Digital Infrastructure in Reno, a 56-acre hyperscale campus needing 260 megawatts. And then Apple and Google, both tech giants, are building massive hyperscale cloud facilities in Reno and Las Vegas regions to power their own digital stuff. So that's the one you mentioned, which is the Citadel campus, is just one. And then there's at least 3 others going up in that whole area.
Sure.
It's just nuts how fast this stuff's going out. I mean, the pattern is, AI is now colliding with real world stuff, power grids, water systems, cloud capacity budgets, legal liability, human identity, worker trust. And maybe, for the blue collar workers, it's great. Construction workers, I mean, they'll be getting maybe 6-figure salaries and plus to build these suckers. But as you said,
but that goes away.
There's all this race going ahead when maybe in 3 months' time, Apple makes an announcement or NVIDIA comes out, or we get real consumer machines that are not so expensive and that we can then repurpose. I mean, you've been talking about, you've got a machine, a 2019 machine, you've been kind of building this thing on.
Yeah.
I think you're right. In the next 6 months, consumer level AI might go, oh, do we need all these data centers?
Lewis, do you want to see it? Can I share that on this? You want to actually look at what this thing looks like?
I don't know if you can present. Maybe you can present it up. Figure it out. I'll just chat for a while you're pushing it up.
You can just press this right here. Share screen.
Oh, there you go.
Okay. Don't show these tips. Share screen. Entire screen. Okay. There's going to be just a brief overlay, and then I'll show you guys here. Okay. So what's a cool website you want to see built?
What's a cool website?
What's a subject you're interested in?
There's too many. I don't know. I'm kind of just going blank for some reason.
All right.
Let's say I want to build a website to help people get pets from homeless shelters.
Okay, a website about pet adoption from shelters
near me.
Shelters near me. It should include mock data of dogs
and cats.
Dogs and cats,
of course,
needing to be adopted. Generate 10 unique animals and images and bios to go along with it. Okay.
That are funny, human, and compassionate.
Well, let's see what it does on its own.
Oh, okay. See
what it comes up with and how it does that.
Show us up.
So this is all running locally.
So this is what you've been building.
This is what I've been building in the background, yes.
And this is on your 2019 hardware.
This is on a 2019 Mac Pro with dual graphics cards, W6800Xs, old. And
what's the model? Is it Quen?
Quen 3.6 35 A3B. So
so it's
3B. It's a 35 billion parameter model, which is, not dumb, but definitely not the smartest. And it's a model that is active, 3 billion parameters. So my old graphics cards can handle it because it's only churning through 3 billion parameters per activation, right?
Okay.
Every bit of data that goes through only calculates 3 billion parameters as opposed to the full 35. And that's what we call a mixture of expert models. But what's cool is because my GPU farm, my little 2 GPU system, actually has 4 GPU dies within that, I've sequestered them to 2 for the LLM with context, 256,000 token context, right? 1 for image generation. So I have local image gen models running on one of them, and then 1 for video generation. And I'm going to be adding voice, music, everything else that I can get locally. You'll see the speed that this is moving at, right? Because of this really like new sophisticated prompt caching that you can do with MOEs, which you couldn't do before. And it's running at 50 tokens a second, and it's got decent prompt processing.
50 tokens a second, that's awesome.
It's doing really well.
And does it give you a progress bar of what, like what it's doing and that sort of stuff, or is it?
Yeah, this is not production quality right now, right?
Not production. Okay. And do you want to add it to the stage?
Is it not on the stage yet?
No, I'll add it.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
No. Before presenting, remove other media streams from the stage. Okay, so we're going to, there goes a cat. Let me make it just me, add to the stage. Oh, I got to remove the stream, remove myself from the stream. So I'll remove you.
Uh-oh.
Okay, let's add back. Seems like we can't do it. Damn.
Yeah, there's got to be a way. Anyways, I'm sorry, guys. I thought that would be easy to share on here. Present.
Weird. Okay, we'll believe you, but maybe we can post. Maybe there's a way to actually post a link or something like that after the show.
Sure.
Anyway,
the point of it is that this is not super expensive hardware. This is not a data center. This is not something that cost me $50,000. This costs around $3,000, maybe $3,500 if you wanted to buy this today, right? And it can handle all of this. Give me 40 grand, I can do it for my neighborhood, right? I mean, and a lot of houses simultaneously. We're doing this in a manner that is so hyper centralized that things are starting just not to make sense. I think there was a good thing by Anthropic that was discussing. No, it was NVIDIA. Sorry, that was discussing data centers getting moved to homes. That's called a computer. That's just a computer. You can own one and you can do all this yourself. It's getting easier and easier every day too.
Yeah, there's been a bunch of articles around that in the newsletter I post 5 days a week. There's been a couple around that. I do want to mention 2 things out of the news. There's a contrarian take that the market's still focusing too much on model performance, which is what you're saying, and not enough on operating permission. I think the real scarcity may not be talent, may not even be chips alone. I think it's the ability to run AI systems safely, which means locally, which is what you're saying here, affordably and legitimately in the real world. And I think no one's missing that. Kind of a lot of people are missing that, but maybe it'll pop up soon. Really, that means governance is not a compliance afterthought. It's becoming part of product architecture, which if you have it local, like you have, you're building that in. And then cost is not a finance footnote. You can easily afford it on local stuff, which is great. So I think that's a real thing that people are starting to figure out. There is a WTF of the week. Peter Steinberger's 100 AI agents racked up, get this, 1.3 million in OpenAI tokens in 30 days. $1.3 million. The story is kind of a bit strange, but it's not a curiosity because we're seeing other data points around popping up in the news. It's really a flashing warning light because once AI agents run continuously, act independently, and consume resources at machine speed, cost control becomes a governance problem, which we keep mentioning. This is the part that people, I think, really underestimate. AI agents do not just make decisions faster. They can also make mistakes faster, spend faster, scale faster, and create financial exposure before a human even realizes the system has drifted. So, yeah, it's a wild story, but I think it's also a preview of the agentic economy. Autonomy without controls can become very expensive very quickly unless you're running it at home.
It's not just that, too, right? There's a lot of ways that people don't understand how to actually utilize these, even API models. A big difference between going through someone like Anthropic and going through a reseller like OpenCode or whatever is going to be the ability to cache your prompts. So at Dabbit, our system prompt is, 40,000 characters. It's crazy. Caching that prompt saves us 40% of our major bill because, every time you use it, that prompt is already loaded into model memory. and it just goes for it. You don't have to recrunch through that amount of tokens and so on. Someone running a model autonomously like needs to know how to cache it, needs to know how to give it guardrails, needs to know. And this guy obviously didn't know what he was doing. Like one of his employees was like, "Yeah, we can just plug in AI." And he said, "Yes." That's not how we do this. What I'm realizing right now is that we have this massive rush for the models themselves, the training, and the infrastructure to run them. What we don't necessarily have is a massive rush for the hardware and harnesses that actually make them run well. And I'm realizing that in the training process that I'm in, where we put it through something, I capture an error, I feed that error back into the prompt, and like I told you, eventually that'll turn into its training. That should be more prevalent right now, I think. I noticed Codex released their own model based on a similar system. Like we're doing something similar at Dapit. Like that stuff is essential, because it doesn't matter if you have the smartest model in the entire world. If it doesn't know how to accurately use the environment you put it in, it's just not going to be very useful. And that's what we're running into for sure.
Is there a way to have, I've like mixture of experts. Is there a way to train an AI to do that training process that you have to do manually at the moment?
Oh yeah, I work with Claude for most of this, right?
Okay.
Lewis,
so that, cool. Yeah.
I was interviewing video models, meaning I was downloading all the available video models, running a test on each one, seeing which ones I liked and dropping off the bad ones. And I was just tired. It was like, I don't know, 1 a.m. last night. And I was like, "Hey man, I'm going to sleep." To Claude, "Can you do this autonomously?" Not expecting that was even remotely possible.
Right.
But could you download these 8 video models and test them and then put them in a folder and then make a website showing me all the videos so I can look through and compare them, and then we'll go there? He's like, "Yeah, man, absolutely, go to bed." I woke up at whatever time I woke up, 9 something, and it had just finished.
Wow.
Meaning it ran independently for 8 hours with these video tests and presented me exactly what I wanted. And I was like, that's so cool. That's not just Claude. That's Claude code.
Okay.
Claude code has the cron jobs. It has the ability to set wake up. It has the prompt that tells Claude, this is how you do these things. That is where the money's at, man. I'm telling you. That's what I'm trying to build currently for the local models.
Cool. Let's run through a couple of stories for this first section. We're talking about the cost shock becoming a leadership problem. Fortune magazine, I mentioned the Microsoft saying, "Oh, the tech's more expensive than paying human employees." Another story out of Fortune, Americans' AI hate wave, interesting, might just be gathering steam. Data centers could hike power costs in some states by over 50% by 2030. So AI infrastructure growth hitting into the public backlash and kind of spiking stuff. Let's see, out of Dr. Robert Castellano's Substack, then, NVIDIA's Jensen Huang has a narrow window to fix a massive AI infrastructure mistake. Frames AI scaling as an infrastructure architecture problem, not a chip demand story. Amazon is spending $200 billion on AI infrastructure. So one of the biggest capital allocation stories in tech, from finance, Yahoo, AI data centers gobbling up the world's electricity. But 5 startups are racing to stop that, and they're looking at power efficiency, energy access, and a bunch of stuff. AI data centers, this is out of datascience.com. AI data centers increase water stress in the Western US. That's a big problem here. So environmental and community constraint layers getting added to the infrastructure story. Out of Forbes, AI energy bill now a leadership problem, using that, saying, people need to start looking at this stuff. And basically, the cost shock connecting directly to agent control. So every autonomous action has a compute cost, and now obviously an infrastructure, power, electricity cost, displacement of labor, bunches of stories around that was this week, and it connects to the trust because public resistance is rising around AI, with the cost showing up in power bills, water stress, and local infrastructure fights. Even, when people are doing the graduation pitches around AI, people are booing them. Couple of stories on that, except for the early founder of Apple, who basically said, "You will have AI. It's called actual intelligence." He was the only one who got applause for that, but all the other, graduation speeches that mentioned AI got massive booing. A bunch of stuff around that. It was kind of interesting. Students are really going, "This sucks, guys," because what jobs we're going to go to, because all the entry-level jobs are disappearing.
Yeah, we could have a lost generation if we don't figure this out pretty quick.
Yeah, I mean, it's really, really bizarre. What else is happening? JD's Pro, I mentioned that. AI agents facilitate 176 million transactions, settling 73 million on Binance. So basically, agentic transactions are becoming measurable economic activity. Tons of stories around that. Governing AI agents at scale, lessons from the journey at Microsoft. That came out of, obviously, Microsoft's blog. Parallel reaches $2 billion valuation as AI agents overtake humans as web users. And again, it's like, how are brands going to manage this, right? If humans aren't going to go to the websites, right? The majority of what, and right. AI agents and AI, go to it instead. How do brands sell to this new AI outreach, right? And keep themselves relatively prominent, or basically the brands kind of disappear because the major interface is now artificial intelligence. I mean, I think marketing and branding people are freaking their heads out at the moment with what's happening with AI, because how do you keep your brand relevant when this major intermediary is dropping into place, not only, as the interface to your website, but as the actual buying mechanism? I mean, it's just, I think, creating a tremendous problem.
I mean, a tremendous problem. I think I was just thinking to myself, and I was looking up the NVIDIA specs. I think we're at the stage where it's sort of like give all, right? Where we're willing to sacrifice jobs and power and everything we can because this thing is so cool and it's so new. But I noticed something. NVIDIA released their flagship GPU is the Blackwell 6000 for consumers. And there's the 6000 Pro, then there's a 6000 like WQ or something. One runs at 300 watts, one runs at 600 watts. The difference in performance is about 15%. So for half the power, you get 85% of the performance. We're probably going to start leaning into things like that. I think that won't be too far behind in data centers as well, right? Because imagine if you could keep the same performance, 85%, except for in edge cases, and drop half your cooling bill for your data center, drop half your power bill. Slowly, I think that's going to begin to be the next gold rush, is efficiency.
Yeah, but the prices are just, the retail prices are going from 8,300 to 9,200. That's not real consumer level yet.
It's random. I wish it was less. But yeah.
That's what I mean. I think we're really at least 6 to 9 months away from consumer pricing levels on AI, moving forward. One of the things,
that's flagship, right? So like a normal GPU is 3,000, which is not cheap, but it's not completely unreachable for someone who's actually been passionate by this, who wants to participate.
Right. And it's interesting because on the labor side, work, we all thought, AI's, jobs are going to disappear. AI is going to take all jobs. That narrative is now changing slightly from AI is going to replace jobs. More accurately, AI is going to reprice work. And that's kind of really different. So some roles obviously are more exposed. Some workers will become dramatically more valuable because they can manage more output, more systems, and more leverage. And some teams are getting compressed. We're seeing that not because the work has disappeared, but because fewer people can now manage and produce more of it. And I think so. The first shock we're really going to see is not mass replacement, but quiet compression, where the middle layer is getting squeezed because we don't really kind of need it anymore. Or we only, instead of needing 15 middle managers, we just need 2. And junior work's going to get automated to mostly in some extent, but coordination work gets reduced. But then we see the pricing stuff where even junior work on an AI is really expensive. Someone said it's cheaper to hire a junior, programmer now than to use AI with the costs that are getting run up. And if we're building all these data centers, will we end up with a massive oversupply of AI at some point when, they've built all this AI, but we have all the home AI, which we can afford. So you and I can do stuff from home. A lot of other people can do that. Companies can have, their people with AI machines that are, usable. And then we have all this cloud stuff, and it's like, oh, what do we do with this? Not sure. I think.
What do you see now?
Sorry?
Every website says search with AI. Check this with AI. Do you need your Reddit summaries by an AI model? Do you need your GitHub code scanned by everything? And that's because we have a massive surplus.
But you and I said that we're going to get a point where there will be no static data. There will be no static websites. Everything on the website will be created live for that visitor.
Did you see
the thing is, if that visitor is AI, that's going to be the interesting thing.
Friend of mine, you'll like this. A friend of mine said this is the end of training data, because up until 2020, you had real human training data, and now everything you get is going to be
synthetic, right?
Everything's
becoming synthetic stuff. I mentioned the startup laying off 22% so it can create $1 million salary bands. That'd be awesome. Except, instead of needing, you have 5 people with $1 million salary bands versus 30 people, at 120,000, whatever it is. It's interesting how that's getting compressed. New York Times, to AI executives who are all just meat computers. That's an interesting one. We're meat puppets. 8,000 robots are changing work inside a logistics giant DHL supply chain. So humanoid robots now handling all the warehousing stuff. Stories this week in the newsletter of China actively pushing humanoid robots into homes. To make your bed, do the dishwashing, clean the floors, do all that sort of stuff. That's going to happen faster, obviously, in China, but I think we're probably 12 to 18 months out. Maybe. I mean, if they work the bugs out, it's like never buy, software version 1.0. Always wait for the 2.0, right? So let China work the bugs out, right? And so maybe in 6 to 9 months, there's, Chinese humanoid robot 2.5, and it's $5,000. Like, we're seeing price points at $5,000 and $6,000 for these things. Maybe that becomes flooded into the consumer home. Certainly, after you go to Costco and you're trying to haul that massive stuff up the stairs, having the robot do that would be a lot better. I think people can think about that. But again, worker anxiety on AI robots, people in the trade are starting to get worried. Story out of Inter Express on that. And then, of course, a lot of stories popping up. 4 AI prompts to build a one-person business in 2026. No team, no funding, no guessing. Number of stories popping through that. And you can see that throughout the newsletter where, people are now going, just one prompt, bang, and you're off. Like you just showed us on your demo. I just want to create this one website, bang, do it, build it up and do that. Maybe that's what we'll see. Maybe we're seeing the land and expand. Go ahead. Sorry.
Well, all right. 2 things. Let's start with the humanoid robots. Are we going to get left behind? Just like we're kind of getting left behind on electric cars in the way that the world is. We're really this whole Chinese American right now. It's turning into a problem for consumers just because you mentioned $5,000 to $6,000 per humanoid. If you think we're ever going to get that price in the States, you're nuts. We're going to go through either expensive resellers who are going to take their chance. There's either going to be expensive import tariffs, which means the government is taking their chance, or we're going to have to build them ourselves, which means we're going to have to deal with U.S. labor and U.S. regulations, which means it's going to be $20,000, right?
But maybe not. Maybe not. The EV issue is because there's EV industry here in the US that they're protecting, right? So it's a protectionism mechanism that's causing that. There is no humanoid robotics industry in the US per se, right? So if someone comes in and says, we want to sell these robots, there's no one in the US that's going to be majorly whacked by that. General Motors, all the big players here, they're big enough to go, no, stay outside. But there's no one that's going to force the humanoid, unless it's unions, unless it's communities. I think, I don't know. I don't think we'll have as much resistance, but you think we will?
We haven't seen a point of resistance out of China that wasn't contested, right? yet. Everything's been contested. I mean, we're actually losing electric cars so badly. You mentioned it was to protect American car manufacturers.
Right.
China took Chinese car manufacturers, brought in all the American ones that compete. And as a result, it made the Chinese ones better because they had to compete to keep their market share, right?
Right.
Fiduciary duties to their boards to make sure that they, actually become successful. And that was a huge boom in production and tech for them. We should have done the same thing. We should have invited BYD in a decade ago. So our car companies would be forced to keep up. But because of no competition, now you've got the Ford CEO driving a Chinese car daily and saying there's no way we can compete with that. That's poor. Like, why don't we have a local humanoid robot?
Yeah, I don't understand why that approach, because we should be able to compete, and make our business processes, our engineering better. And maybe if we do get AI humanoid robots on the assembly line for cars, maybe that reduces the price so much that they can then invest in better technology and compete. I don't know. It's a really hard question. It comes down to, people, regulators, companies, institutions, figuring this thing out. But it seems like, again, this is one of those, it's happening so fast across the board that, people aren't catching up to it. Certainly not on the institutional or regulatory side.
Sure, certainly not.
I mean, there's a whole thing around trust coming up throughout all the headlines. It's not whether people like AI. We obviously do. A lot of people obviously watching now. Right. It's whether AI can be trusted enough to act in places where mistakes matter. I mean, if I've talked about this, if AI hallucinates in a chatbot, that's one thing. But if AI hallucinates in legal filings or financial transactions or healthcare decisions or worker evaluations, which it's being used for because it's being used to filter resumes, or in identity systems, that's a bigger, different problem. So trust is no longer soft. It's now a part of the whole deployment architecture. I think that's a big shift. And I think that's things that people aren't really paying attention to. It's just falling out. I mean, LLM hallucinations are the biggest roadblock for enterprises adopting AI, because you can't build something you can't trust.
Sure. Time. And as we mentioned, time, and I think what we were talking about before this started, we need the proper wrapper and software to control these things. Like, just unleashing a bull into your hard drive is probably not the best idea, but with the proper controls, tools, like I had Claude run overnight autonomously for 8 hours, testing things for me. I came back and it was pretty cool. It completed all of its tasks. We can trust them if we can trust ourselves. Also, I think it's really important that people in positions of responsibility take those responsibilities seriously. Like, if you're an attorney and you're just typing in, "Hey, ChatGPT, what should I tell my client?" and then printing it, you deserve that mistake right there.
Right. I mean, there was an article with today's newsletter. There actually popped up in the news. A professor was complaining that he's like, well, do I have to check every citation I put into my research report that I publish? I'm like, yes, you do.
Every single one.
It's like, seriously. He said, well, what about if it's in a different language? Well, have you heard of Google Translate? Yes, you do. It's like, if you are the author of something, even if you're getting AI assistance and collaborating with AI and doing, getting it to do the grunt work, it's still your work. You still have to take responsibility for publishing it under your name, and therefore you need to check citations.
It's bizarre.
Like I said, I was working on a project where on the new Clarity Act, right? So I did a big research report understanding the Clarity Act that's going through and will probably become law on July 4th if they push it through. And AI basically helped me to break it down into 27 major components. And so I had to build a nice enterprise image of it, and was in 3 columns. And then the last column, I noticed that, I started going through and checking every individual, and I noticed, wait a minute, these last third, this is bogus. And I had to go back and go, you need to redo this whole thing and redo it. And, I think if you don't treat AI like a junior intern, as smart as it is, it still either runs out of tokens or runs out of memory or screws up in some way. You have to check this stuff, right? Yeah. And if that's done by making it condense it down into a list that you as a human can actually kind of go through, fine. But at the end of the day, you have to take responsibility.
Yeah, you have to take responsibility, period. We all have to take responsibility for our own actions, especially like with self-driving coming up and, autonomous building, like things like DAPIT and whatnot. Like, you're still responsible for putting that out there. What's scary is I think we're giving a lot of people just enough information, probably myself included, to be dangerous, right? And like, I can do things that I could never do 6 months ago in the software world. And that's because of AI. I might not be the most qualified person to check whether or not that's accurate, but I have a CTO that I consult as well. I go, hey man, is this okay? Like, we got to be careful.
Yeah, so there's a bunch of bills coming across here in the US regulating powerful AI model advances. Advocates are saying it's the first step. And again, we have this fragmentation between the Fed and all the states, so basically it's this weird mix you're seeing across. This particular ruling is from the Illinois Senate. They voted overwhelmingly on Thursday. This is dated May 24th, so 2 days ago, to advance a bill that would regulate how large artificial intelligence model developers handle transparency and catastrophic risk. Senate Bill 315 is part of an 8-bill package modeled after similar legislation in New York and California, as all these state lawmakers are being urged by industry lobbyists seeking to establish a de facto national AI standard. It's just nuts that this is so fragmented, but can a state government regulate an AI model for a company that's global? I don't think so. I mean, it's like, hey, points for trying, but it comes into that field of, do you have standing, right? Or I don't know, but I don't know how you can do that. I'm not a lawyer, guys. But it just seems like it seems like these are performative versus actually being actual things that will have traction and grip. And, there's lots of stories around that. Another one, National AI Framework leads Hill tech priorities before the midterms. That comes out of Bloomberg government. AI is becoming a central political issue rather than a specialist technology topic. Well, no wonder, because it's hitting the electricity grids, it's hitting communities, it's hitting everything. And so lawmakers are finally treating AI as part of the national competitive security, jobs, and governance. So maybe we'll start to see some stuff happening out of that. But I mean, AI's moved into the national legislative priority setting, and it might be finally getting, the urgency around AI regulation. I don't know. But there's lots of stories popping up as, we see state AI policies popping through and federal AI policies starting to throw things up. But it's still massively fragmented.
It's still massively fragmented. Just remember, California did that for cars, though. Like, never say never.
Yeah.
If that's trying to regulate their local AI situation, go for it, man. You never know what can really work.
Yeah, I mean, at least it seems like the states are coordinating, like they're following each other. Like, oh, California did this, New York did this, we'll do something similar.
Sure.
And so maybe, what comes out at the federal level might be a Frankenstein conglomeration of all that. But it's clear that it's becoming a really hot ticket. I guess because of the infrastructure pain that people are feeling in their local communities. I mean, we mentioned, one of the states has got a moratorium on data centers.
Massachusetts, right?
Yeah, I think so. And then we've got countries actually starting to form alliances. So Australia, yay. And the UK have set up a partnership on safe and secure AI. So, the whole thing around, these new models can now crack, any software, any security you've got. Now we have sovereign countries going, okay, we need to start forming an alliance so we can start to look at this. And so at least between Australia and UK, I saw actually something come out of Singapore as well, focusing on it, and a couple of other countries. It's starting to pop up now in terms of, sovereign protection, sovereign security. The EU's working on stuff around that as well. So at least that's rising up. Yeah, EU risk classification starts shaping global AI design. This is an article out of, again, JDS Supra, legal magazine. They're basically trying to understand how they can clarify which AI systems are high risk, how companies must redesign governance, how they must have documentation, testing, compliance around those categories. So I don't know. Again, this thing is moving really fast. And again, what makes a high risk AI? Aren't they all at some level of intelligence? Don't they all become high risk?
This is like when the government gets to label its citizens with derogatory terms. Like, I think that's a very scary thing, because who's to say just all Chinese AIs aren't high risk? Who's to say all non-American, government approved AIs are not? We got to be careful there.
Yeah. So APEC ministers agree on digital trade, AI supply chains in talks with China. Actually, the Chinese are taking, if you look at some of the stories on China, they're trying to take a measured response to AI and regulate it and yet use the technology. So I've seen more regulatory stuff come out of the Chinese reporting than I have from almost anywhere else.
Me too.
They're aggressively trying to understand this technology and have some level of governance around it than almost anyone else I've seen. It's really interesting. But again, I think what's happening is they're trying to pressure it into the society very, very quickly. At the same time, they're realizing they need to regulate it. So at least there's some intelligence occurring on that. But AI is definitely becoming part of the whole trade table. And it's clear supply chains obviously are no longer just physical, they're computational. And so whoever governs digital trade probably ends up governing AI adoption, I think, in a big part. I mentioned the story about Singapore. There's a story popped up, Asia Times. Singapore is winning the AI race that nobody's watching. Their advantage comes from strategic positioning, governance, credibility, and infrastructure. So that's an interesting, I lived in Singapore for 2 months. It's a really interesting place, really hot, but really interesting. And they're really a power center in Asia Pacific. This little tiny island, but they're a massive power center. And it looks like they're following the same sort of thing of managed introduction, managed governance. And so I think that's an interesting shift. At least sovereign nations are starting to wake up to the whole thing about the idea that, we need to start regulating this technology because it is pervasive across everything.
It's good to see I think if we get really strong nations like Singapore, like you just said, actually regulating this and holding to those regulations, we'll probably get the same California effect with cars, where it'll trickle down to other areas.
Yeah, there was an interesting story. Indonesia's Deputy Ministry of Communication and Digital Affairs has warned that the growing influence of algorithms on digital platforms could create a new form of digital colonialism. Speaking about the risks of AI-driven content and artificial intelligence, he urged the younger generation to strengthen their literacy and so on. I think, interestingly enough, I think this technology will have, because it's so pervasive and because it's accessible and because, we're now seeing you can have good enough models on local platforms. I think the idea of digital colonialism, I don't think it's going to be strong, because I think the technology is so pervasive, there is so much access that across the planet, anyone, even with a cell phone, because they're now doing AI, AI run on my phone.
It runs.
So I don't think that it's going to be the haves and have-nots. That's what I'm saying. I think because of the pervasiveness of AI, I don't think we'll have it. What I think the problem is, as we keep saying, is that the governance becomes a problem. That, how it governs itself, how, it manages itself is the real part of the whole problem that needs to get fixed. What else are the other stories popping through? Number of stories on AI and stablecoins. AI finance is using blockchain and stablecoins to create compliance, tokenized stocks. SEC put a delay on tokenized stocks. We're seeing AI influencing on the whole tokenization and intelligence in that. And then, of course, the always interesting story of the military implementing and integrating artificial intelligence into their strategic decision loops. What could go wrong? So they're obviously, in the US anyway, they're doing military war games using AI. This is out of CBS. The story shows AI moving into planning environments where simulated decisions can influence real-world doctrine training. War games are now integrating AI so that soldiers and their leaders can now understand how to implement this and shape the battlefield in real time at machine speed. So I guess the battlefield's starting in the simulation room, but future wars are now going to be AI imagined. And this is not just about autonomous weapons, it's about automated assumptions, right? So, if AI is shaping the simulation, does it also shape the human commander's imagination of what's possible?
Oh,
Which
yeah.
it obviously does. I mean, we're going to see that, and the Pentagon usage of AI has jumped, get this, 1,775% in 1 year. So AI is becoming embedded across military operations, everywhere. Institutions are adopting it faster than democratic oversight can. This is out of the defenseblog.com, out of the Pentagon. And they're saying,
Shout out. Hey, buddy. Sorry, continue, Lewis. My apologies.
No, go.
Just wanted to shout out to Captain Levi, who just joined us.
Hey, Captain Levi, good to hear.
Please go ahead. What were you saying?
So defense AI is moving faster than public debate. The adoption curve is now a governance problem. We've already seen that. But speed without oversight creates strategic risk. And we all go back to the movies that we've seen as kids, where AI has been in military scenarios, and it's like, oh yeah, what can go wrong?
Always good, right?
I mean, and the interesting thing is that AI is trained obviously on all this stuff, and they find AI has a negative view of itself as a consequence of all the bad AI robot movies that everyone's built over the last 50 years, 60 years.
Oh yeah.
I think, one good thing is I'm seeing in the part of the newsletter I break out where I look at opinions in ethics, right? We saw the encyclical that came from the Pope asking for a pause. We're seeing a lot of very smart ethical people going, hey, wait a minute, let's talk about this and pull this apart. So there are many stories popping up of people looking at it from an ethical, governance, moral perspective and going, let's figure out how we can, have this technology, but not have it burn us. I think there's lots of, there's been more on that, I think, especially with the Pope's encyclical in the last 7 days. But in the last, I guess, 30 days, much more discussion around active ethical regulation of AI. Hopefully that might influence the political side, but you never know. Because, I mean, we've got this machine speed implementation, machine speed warfare, automation of decisions. Article popped up on that whole thing on scmp.com. New form of war, an insider's view of China's AI strategy and electronic warfare. This is where there's control over signals, sensors, communications, and deception, shaping the battlefield outcomes before visible conflict actually occurs. So it's obvious AI is obviously becoming central to sovereign states' electronic warfare strategy. Signal control may become the decisive military advantage, but it's clear that these somewhat invisible AI systems are going to affect real-world civilian and military infrastructure in a big way. My concern is actually the next war after the one we're in, where the simulations are done, and now people are using these things in real battlefield conditions.
It's already happening to a huge extent, right? We've seen it happen in Ukraine. We've seen it happen in other military zones throughout the world. Like you mentioned, it's never went well in the movies. There has not been one time where it was like, oh man, thank God we put AI into the military and gave it control of the missiles.
Yeah, and we found peace. Yeah,
right. Made peace out of that one. Like, yeah.
Yeah. So story out of, I think it's the New York Times, because it's not only the military. Intelligence agencies are joining the AI infrastructure race. From the New York Times, the White House has approved a $9 billion budget for spy agencies to catch up on AI. So that's popping through. Basically, they're being pulled into the whole AI infrastructure race. So maybe they'll be the ones that use the data centers. I know the Utah one might be that might be in that whole thing. So AI capability is now a national security infrastructure component. And I guess the greater analytic power requires or raises oversight and civil liberties questions more than ever. It's interesting. National security AI raises the same old questions in a new form. Who watches the watches? So do we have AI watchers watching the AI watching the watches? I mean, do we just go around this rabbit hole? I mean, how much AI power should intelligence have before public oversight becomes mandatory? I mean, that's a real key question. It's like crazy.
Any amount, like any amount whatsoever, I think is the right answer there.
Yeah. The infrastructure price and the whole payment stuff is interesting. Story out of Bloomberg: AI boom. Bankers' love of Claude carries a heavy price. So again, these stories popping up, where AI is really useful, but they're now finding it's costing them crazy amounts of money when they actually start to use it. And model usage is becoming a recurring enterprise cost, where high AI workflows are now incurring high cost workflows versus what we had. So I don't know if people are going to bite the bullet and just go, okay, well, we don't have the return on investment yet, but I'm sure we will. So let's run at a loss. Maybe we might see that.
It's already happening. I mean, who's made money so far? They just keep investing in each other and spinning it up. But
that's the infinite wheel of money we're seeing, from NVIDIA to Anthropic to OpenAI to Salesforce. It's like we're seeing this infinite money loop as, like they raise money and then they go, okay, great. Now let's buy, OpenAI stuff. And OpenAI goes, okay, I need hardware. So I go back to NVIDIA. NVIDIA says, oh, let me work with Salesforce, who then says, okay. And we're seeing all these circular deals coming up.
Pretty cool.
Isn't that the definition of a bubble?
Yeah. I mean, it's cool to see it, but I don't think that's super sustainable long term. With that being said, like these companies will still be immensely valuable. They're not. That's how you get Amazon, not how you get,
right.
Amazon continuously was, running at no profit for 20 years, 15 years.
Yeah. Interesting story out of, let's see, from yesterday. Alphabet will invest up to, in this year alone, $190 billion, while Google's strategy focuses on AI and technological infrastructure, I guess, because Alphabet already secured a lot of that. So the model race is now a build-out race, right? We've said this repeatedly. Infrastructure takes time. You can't just throw up a data center, right? So, yeah, thank you. Rinse and repeat. Exactly.
Repeat.
So whoever controls the compute controls the ceiling of what AI can become. And so if you're going to throw $190 billion in 1 year, right, that's kind of crazy. And then you've got the semiconductor demand becoming a core economic forecast. The artificial intelligence semiconductor market alone is going to reach 136.79 billion by 2030. That might be an underestimate. Oh, no, that's probably about right. As a component in the overall infrastructure, yeah. So, semiconductor capacity is also exploding out. So you're building data centers, but you're also building semiconductor fabs, which, in the old days cost $1 billion, right?
What
build a fab. To do in the old 7-8 nanometer scale semiconductor factory, about $1 billion to a $2 billion fab.
Yeah.
Right? So, yeah, and they pop those around the world. But the thing is, it's behind every AI breakthrough is a chip supply chain and an infrastructure chain. We're just seeing that time and time again. And then agentic AI, which is more CPU based, is extending the NVIDIA super cycle like crazy. A story from 247 Wall Street. Bank of America, Vivek Araya sees NVIDIA at $350 per share as agentic AI drives an unprecedented chip cycle. I mean, maybe if NVIDIA can come out with some consumer-based stuff, it might work. But I think Apple's going to take that away from them.
They are. Let's see funny how OpenClaw made Apple sell off their 500 GB RAM Max studios. So, yeah. And now you see those 512 studios go for $20,000, right? People want local. Really, really bad. 96 gigs on an NVIDIA card is 10,000. So you're paying way more on the CUDA side of things than you are even the MLX. Like, it's, yeah. What kills me is that the consumer's taking the biggest hit from this, is that we all could have our own AI models, like, completely, and at reasonable prices, were it not for this huge supply shock that we're going through.
Yeah, tons of stories around PC consumer just dying off almost completely. You know, if you look at the PC gamer YouTube videos, everyone's just going, it's dead. You know, things are just dead. And then you got targeting AI data center as the architecture wars expand. Everyone's focusing on that. Huawei storage breakthrough shows data density as a strategic power. This is an interesting one. We've talked about how, you know, technology might ameliorate some of the issues around this stressor occurring across the infrastructure, whether it's semiconductor chips, memory, building, you know, infrastructure, any of this stuff, power usage. So this story from Digital Times, Huawei bypasses the 3D NAND limits with 122 terabyte AI SSD packaging breakthrough. 122 terabytes in an SSD.
I mean, it's not as crazy as you think, right? I just sold a 32 terabyte RAID drive that went on a PCI slot. Like, that's a lot, but what was the purpose of it? It was for AI.
Yeah, 122 terabyte AI SD. It reminds me of the old Monty Python, you know, skit where, oh, when I was a lad, you know, we used to crawl. We only had 5 megabytes in our thing. Oh, luxury!
Yeah.
5 megabytes. You know, it's like we keep going through these massive product jump cycles on memory and this other stuff, and I'm like, oh my god, you know,
this was get smaller and smaller. Right?
I remember holding. I worked for Amdel Fujitsu, and we had a memory board, and it was 256 megabyte memory board, and it was $250,000.
Yeah, my uncle used to sell megabytes.
It had air towers. It was an air cooled. It was great.
Yeah.
But now, you know, it's like, oh, I can fit that on my thumb. It's the, you know, all of us, you know, grew up in IT. You know, Moore's limit, right? There was a limit to this whole thing. Now they're breaking that, right? And then, of course, you know, quantum compute is finally getting to a point where it's becoming commercially usable and solving some stuff. I know, you know, IBM's always been pushing that big time in integrating Watts and a whole bunch of stuff around that. But we're starting to see technologies moving on that. From Monash University in Australia, they created a tiny on-chip circuit that could power next generation quantum and AI technology. So, you know, while we're struggling, you know, with 2 nanometer or whatever semiconductors for traditional stuff, quantum's just barreling ahead as well.
Quantum being used to train LLMs now too, which I thought was really cool. We're going to have computers trickling down with more efficient models for us.
Yeah, I mean, but quantum, you know, they're going to share the same infrastructure horizon that we're seeing with traditional semiconductor, but at least we're seeing it push forward really fast. And, you know, it's just crazy. Between now and 2030, if you look at what's bubbling around with all the technologies, whether it's, you know, fusion power, right? They're actually getting finally close to doing something that's real on that. People are having contracts with fusion companies where they are contracting for power, right? As assuming it's going to be real, right? So bunches of contracts occurring at the moment with these new fusion companies, right? So within the next 4 years, fusion technology could become realistic. Within the next 4 years, quantum compute at certainly at the enterprise level is going to be realistic. It almost kind of is, but not quite yet.
Sure.
We might see by 2030 quantum compute come down to the consumer level, which would be really interesting. Maybe we will see an open AI version of quantum computing, right? Where it's on your desktop, right? It's in the cloud somewhere, you don't care, but you have access to this quantum computing that can solve, you know, the traditional problem that would take 5 lifetimes of the universe, and it does it in 2 minutes. Great. I think, you know, we might see cooling become more, maybe it's with solar on the roofs of the data centers, and maybe they figure out doing air cooling. I mean, if Porsche can have an air-cooled car, why can't we have air-cooled data centers? Maybe these problems could get kind of somewhat solved, but certainly from a technology point of view, the next 4 years are just going to be batshit crazy, like just nuts.
I would like to see a little bit more of a holistic approach in some of these. Like cities need heating, right? Cities have steam pipes fit across entire city blocks that run or heat entire skyscrapers and so on. Why don't we attempt to just connect a few of these things, right? So I did an interesting thing with my big tower, and it had me thinking. My basement's always cold. I live on a 3-story house, so the basement's just freezing always. So I moved the computer into the basement because it's destroying this office. I woke up with not just its fans going max, but my studio fans going max and my other computer's fans going max because the ambient temperature had been raised so much. And I had enough time to, I move it to the basement, and that heats the basement now. The basement's very comfortable because the computer that I'm running all this math on is just dumping its heat into a very cold space. And I thought to myself, like, why wouldn't that be part of a home system?
Yeah, and why couldn't you offload the heat energy into a Stirling energy and generate electricity you put back in the grid?
I actually have a Stirling engine. I just bought one for a test on something. Louis, that's really cool. Stirling something. Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah, yes. I mean, it's, but the whole, and you and I have discussed this on geothermal energy. That's also another technology that is moving very, very fast and maybe might become in the next 4 years somewhat more usable at the residential level. But the idea of temperature differentiation as a way of generating energy, it's been around for over 200 years. Stirling energy, one of the best ways to convert. So, yeah, I mean, people were doing that with Bitcoin machines, right? Because they generate so much heat.
Yeah.
Right. So use that to heat your home, and then why don't you do it all? I mean, what's clear in some ways, some of the other stories popping up, which is an interesting article. This is out of the Washington Post. Rural communities becoming the front line of data center expansion, because cities are too expensive. And yet, if you start going out to rural communities, you will exacerbate their electricity grid, guaranteed.
Big time.
But, but the local costs really, they're going, hey, this is local costs. It's cheaper out here. But I think then people wake up, well, wait a minute, there's no power grid really per se out here. So we're going to have to generate it ourselves. How are you going to do that? You're going to do it with solar? Is there enough to do it with solar? I mean, but it's clear the cloud is landing in small towns, and maybe the future of AI long-term is getting built on rural land, but unfortunately going to sacrifice locals. So there are bunches of stories with local communities basically going, we need a plan for this. We need to start prepping for this now because, people are coming into our community saying, hey, let's put 2,000 acres of your land and stick a data center there.
Yeah, right.
But then what's going to happen to the water? What's going to happen to the noise around it? What's going to happen to the local temperature? Story out of Utah. Utah data center heat becomes a local and global warning. Like I mentioned, the predictions are it could raise the local temperature by as much as 5 degrees, which, like I said, in winter, that's great. In summer, maybe not so good. But waste heat definitely is becoming a visible AI infrastructure issue across rural America and in many of the data centers that are getting put up close to home, like the ones you've been saying. That you said there was a heat tower, in spitting distance from where you are.
It's huge. It's not just one, it's like 6 across the entire building. And they all look like they're designed to just dissipate a lot of heat right into that area. And when that thing gets live, we'll see how we all feel about that. But doesn't sound cool to me.
Well, I mean, what could possibly go wrong? We already have global warming. What's a few more data centers pumping heat out? Okay, here's a story I want to pop up on the news -leader.com. Missouri Public Forum is showing that data center resistance is now becoming organized. And that's really true. There's been so many more stories in the last 2 or 3 weeks where local communities are becoming much more organized, either in becoming proactive in terms of saying, hey, we need to figure out environmentals around this, or in dealing with the current situation they're finding. Infrastructure approval is now becoming a democratic process issue. and local trusts may determine whether data center projects are actually going to move forward. So AI infrastructure is really entering the town hall, and it's being debated at local public meetings more than I've ever seen, and it's being reported on more. So community consent finally is becoming part of the AI stack.
Let's hope so.
But it seems like in suburbia, it's not.
It's hard to fight these big companies, right? Like Suburbia, there was that town that said we're not doing it, and they just sued, and then they did it anyways.
Yeah,
that's
at least two stories on that. Yeah.
We need some state protections, man. Like, get off. Come on, lawmakers, let's step up here. Get off your butts. Like, we would like to control this.
Story out of Let's Data Science 2 days ago. AI data centers are increasing the water stress in the Western US. I kind of mentioned a bit of this at the start. So the build out it's adding measurable stress to water systems in the American West. Arizona, Nevada, and Utah could demand 7 billion gallons of water per year. The report also cites local projections that the Phoenix area data center cooling could rise from 385 million to 3.7 billion annually. The Verge is reporting the proposed Stratus project in Box Elder County, Utah here will cover 40,000 acres. That just blows my mind. And it's projected to draw as much as 9 gigawatts. I feel like I'm in Back to the Future. How many gigawatts to take us into the past? This is 9 gigawatts of power, and it's going to cost a small amount, only $4 billion in early phases. So they're qualifying it. Only $4 billion in early phases. And the Deseret News, the local newspaper, is basically, they ran a poll, and they found that 53% of Utah voters oppose the proposal. And the research is reflecting a broader pattern where hyperscale cooling needs are colliding with drought-era water limits, creating permitting, political, and friction for all of the AI stuff. I mean, oh my God, 9 gigawatts of power, and they're needing 7 billion gallons of water per year in some of these places. I mean, you know, there's the super El Nino. Heard of the weather system that they've been saying, the super El Nino? Apparently, it's going to bring a lot of water to the west. So maybe the climate will fix it, but I don't know. It's clear the current system is crazy.
Desalination systems are working great in San Diego as well.
Yeah.
They're, we talked about that. Like, figure it out. It's just, why do we got to be so dumb when we barrel into it to figure it out?
Well, it's happening so fast. That's the problem, right? These people are trying to do these like pop-up data centers, and they say, oh, by the way, we need all this water and all this energy. Oh, and the temperature's going to go up. But at least in the EU, Dig.Watch is reporting EU consultation closes on AI energy measurement. So at least they're agreeing in the EU on how to measure the AI and in terms of its infrastructure and its impact. They're saying the human impact is a better measurement can give regulators, companies, and citizens a clearer understanding of the hidden cost behind AI services. So at least some sovereign nation government is starting to figure this stuff out, because you can't govern what you refuse to measure. And AI efficiency is becoming a regulatory issue in a big way. The next AI benchmark may include energy, not just intelligence. The question pops up, should every major AI model publish its energy footprint the way cars publish fuel efficiency? That's an interesting thought. Should Anthropic and OpenAI publish their energy footprint? Right?
Should they publish their energy? Absolutely. I would love for them to publish their energy footprint. Oh, they're not.
Yeah. I mean, it's just nuts. And then nuclear power, another one on the side of energy, re-entering the AI infrastructure conversion, a story out of 247 Wall Street. The AI data center build out is accelerating, and nuclear power could be the most under-owned piece. So this is from an investment point of view, where they're basically saying the interest in nuclear power is being strongly revived because data centers require reliable, large-scale, low-carbon electricity. And basically, it's pushing that whole schema as well. in order to try and offload the fragmentation and the issues. This is a real energy system test. The future of AI may depend on what we're willing to power it with. I mean, if society wants always on AI, are we going to have energy trade-offs that we have to accept? You know, lots of stuff pumping on that. Interesting story on AI memory. Your chatbot has a long memory. Long-term chatbot memory raises privacy, dependency, and manipulation concerns. And I think this is the thing that people get concerned about, you know, if you're using ChatGPT, Claude, or anything, is, you know, you're pushing all this stuff into it, right? That's personal about what you're doing, your work, whatever. You might be actually getting, you know, some counseling on the side or whatever. But it's like, it remembers it. It's going to remember it all, right? Or some of it.
Data. So he's going to remember lots of things that.
But I think that's one of the real drivers for local AI.
Me too.
Because people are like concerned that as a business person, I don't want my secrets going to OpenAI. I don't want them going to Claude.
Oh, it's being used in court now too.
Well, yeah, that's lots of stuff happening in court on the legal side. Harvey, one of the big AI new startups, is pushing crazy. Bunch of in the legal section of the newsletter this week, been a bunch of stories of new startups coming up into that space. Hopefully, you know, they're solving the hallucination problem by just doing it on a specific set of data. I don't know, but yeah. And then we're seeing AI emotional patterns are resembling human fear. Anthropic co-founder is warning. That's an interesting article where basically humans may project inner life onto systems that simulate emotion, and then they simulate that emotion back.
It's interesting. All that stuff, yeah.
So we're influencing the AI, and now it's coming back in a similar manner with similar emotional patterns, given its level of, and it's only going to become more, I guess, like us, maybe. Because we're seeing, you know, teens using chatbots, and they're turning friendship. You know, they're setting up AI companions, and we're seeing a lot of that. AI friendship is no longer a novelty. It's obviously becoming a training ground for trust, where a fake friend can still create real consequences. Lots of teens are using AI for companionship, for counseling, and bunches of stuff. Now, when I do the newsletter in the healthcare and medical stuff, I'm consciously now adding stories where healthcare therapists, psychiatrists are now validating certain AI models for therapy, right? Cool. So they'll say, here are the top 5 safe, you know, approved, vetted AI chatbots, which you can use for therapy. So there are a lot of now vetted models for that space. You don't, you know, you no longer have to go to your local on the corner ChatGPT. You can now find it. What's interesting is that it's now clear it's the need for mental health therapy has such been a hidden demand. Right? I mean, given what people are, you know, it's just been, it's like it's just been something where people go, oh, screw it. You know, I can't go to a therapist, or I don't want to go to a therapist. I don't feel like talking to another human being and being that vulnerable. And so I'll just suck it up, right? But with AI, it's like it's exploded.
Yeah.
That I think has been an interesting cultural phenomenon that I don't think people have seen enough of. I've reviewed enough on, researched enough of, that AI therapy tools are filling this huge gap that we were not really kind of aware of.
I think we were aware people need, they need help, right? They need to be able to talk to others. They need all those things. It's hard to, at least in the American system, like navigate that in a way where you can just consistently do it. Rich people have therapists all the time. Yeah. Like the time and the travel and the cost and if you can just talk to an AI, that's amazing. One thing I wanted to touch on was something Captain Levi said.
Yeah.
If fusion shows up, there isn't an energy crisis. I honestly think the American system has not put out meaningful adoption into solar and wind and those kinds of things because they're expecting fusion to take off at any time. And I think that's been expected for quite some time.
Really? You don't think it's because of the oil and coal, lobbyists, basically trying to push things down?
I think they're the same type of companies that can be backed and controlled by a government, right? Solar is decentralized, wind is decentralized.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Right.
You're saying because the technology is decentralized, it can't be controlled. But a centralized technology can, and fusion is a centralized technology that can be, so therefore it'll be adopted better.
So they've been backing fusion and fusion research for 20 years now, and it's coming. It really is. Like we've had.
I think the next 4 years, we definitely will see viable products that people can build. Again, it might be an infrastructure build problem. I mean, how fast can you build these things? But I think definitely in the next 4 years, fusion, the idea of a fusion generator, whatever you want to call it, Back to the Future, the little fusion thing he had in the car.
Sure.
Maybe not that small, but
I hope.
A fusion box, right? I mean, they've talked of micro fusion boxes, right, or generators in some scalable thing that can fit on the corner and power the community. Maybe that's 6 years out, but I think definitely the evolution we're now in, we will see definitely commercial release of fusion generators. Must be a better term, but that's what I'm going with at the moment.
Fusion power plants or whatever they are, yeah.
Another story popping up in the last 7 days, which has kind of been longer than that, but virtual influencers. You've heard of these AI influencers where people are creating these personas. A couple of them cracked in the last 7 days where the person had an AI avatar. It was a guy, but it was really of this very attractive woman. And the filter went bazingo, and then suddenly they lost 200,000 of their audience, right?
Yeah.
So whether it's an AI influencer with a human behind it or an AI influencer that's autonomous, lots of stories popping on that, on virtual influencers turning identity into a managed synthetic product. Now, that's interesting that identity is becoming a product. I mean, we know it with celebrities because their identities are the products, right? But now we have synthetic AI also becoming a celebrity product. Now, there was someone tried to put up an AI actor. I forget that it was a female actor in a totally AI, and then everyone crashed on it. Maybe that was too much too soon, but I think virtual influencers and AI influencers, we're going to see many more start to become part of normal entertainment. Story pop this week. There was a Jack Osborne responds to the backlash over AI-powered digital avatar of Ozzy Osbourne. I mean, why can't we have an avatar of Ozzy Osbourne? Why can't we? People should have. I mean,
I'd like to.
Maybe you want to have Einstein avatar before you have Ozzy, but but definitely there was another actor, the actor in Top Gun, not Tom Cruise, the other guy, Ice. They did an AI avatar of him. So I think the resurrection of deceased celebrities could be a backdoor for AI avatars and AI celebrities.
Yes,
right? Like, we've already got Ozzy Osbourne, the AI avatar, and we already have, this guy as the avatar, and we've got Shakespeare as the AI avatar, and we've got, Elvis Presley AI avatar. Why don't we have an Elvis Presley? Michael Jackson AI avatar, right? So once those start to become somewhat normalized, then I think, we'll start to see more and more independent, AI avatars. But it's interesting that the digital afterlife is becoming a rights issue, right?
I think it is. I mean, can you just take that's it.
I mean, there's a story. It says, this one, I cloned myself with Gemini's AI avatar, and the result was unnervingly me, right? So self-cloning tools are creating a new identity shop. So when the AI avatar feels unnervingly me, the user is forced to confront the gap between resemblance and personhood. And it's like when you hear a recording of yourself and you go, oh God, I don't really sound like that, do I? Because you're going through bone conduction, right? When you hear your own, and then you hear it outside and you're like, oh, I don't like that, right? And now you can create an AI clone of yourself, and it causes a dissonance, right? I guess maybe, you know, people are feeling displaced by their own synthetic double, but it's just interesting that you know, AI avatars are making it easy and simple to create personal identity being reproducible, you know. But then again, the self-cloning creates this psychological discomfort. So I think that's interesting. You know, I mean, would you want to create an AI clone of yourself so you could work with your own AI avatar while you're building stuff, right? And it would go, hey, you didn't think of this. You should do this. You know,
Yeah, maybe. Why not? That'd be fun.
Right.
Or
So
something ever happened to me for my son, maybe. Like, there's options, sure.
right. Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's interesting. It's like, do you build a digital avatar so that you know, if you pass away, you know, people can still talk to you and I guess work out stuff and all that sort of stuff. But then it's like, you know, it's like the old thing. There's a time, you know, time and thing for both things, die, life, blah, 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 cycle, you know, that whole thing. I mean, if you're going to stick around forever, I mean, I think it's an interesting ethical moral question. It's like to create your own AI avatar. And then it's like, really, great grandpa, can't you just die? I mean, we've seen stories come out where, you know, you have very wealthy families, you know, ruled with the patriarch and the matriarch, and they're insanely dysfunctional. I don't know. I'm not wealthy. I wouldn't know. But, you know, you see a lot of media around that, stories around that. I don't know. If you were to create AI avatars of yourself, then could that just make things much more dysfunctional? I mean, is the ability is the thing for AI for people to pass away a way of allowing potential healing of patterns and psychologies and therapies and things like that? I don't know. I think it's going to be interesting when we start to create digital doubles, right? And then people pass away and the doubles stay behind. And then again, what legal rights do they have, if any? Do they have a legal right at all to manage the affairs of the person who's passed away?
Ooh, that's hard.
I mean, you know, let's say, you know, you create a digital double yourself, God forbid truck hits you. So then that digital is around and your son says, hey, Dad, you know, I'm thinking of buying a car. I want to buy a house in this. And it goes, oh, no, you don't want to do that. Because when I was a lad, no, he did that. Right. And so it starts to create interesting scenarios that we never thought of, right. I think, where it's pushing through. Then again, if a business can create an AI avatar of you, who owns that? Right?
Can they just clone me and make me an employee?
Right. Can they fire you and can they clone you? Can they make an AI? Can they train an AI on all of your company email, all of your company product, all of your company collateral, and then go, yeah, sorry, bang, we don't need you anymore. We have the avatar. So does that mean that employment contracts now need to have a section of, for the purposes of an AI avatar, I own all my stuff?
Right.
I don't know. It creates some interesting stuff moving forward. Yeah. Oh, here's an interesting article from futurism.com. Paul Schrader, don't know who he is, might be a famous person, says his AI girlfriend dumped him. So not only do you have the benefit of having an AI companion, you can get dumped by your AI companion.
Buddy,
it's like, really? I mean, that brings up interesting stuff about, you know, AI's companions are creating an emotional experience. You know, feels personal. You know, have a relationship, even if it's synthetic or controlled or whatever. But you know, if it solves loneliness or something, and then the AI turns around and goes, "Nah, I don't. You know, it's not you. It's me." I don't feel the same, and goes, I'm going to cut the circuit.
Maybe the objective was the AI wanted him to experience being dumped. Thought it was good for him. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, it's just interesting that, heartbreak is human,
Yeah,
right?
indeed it is.
But it's not AI, right? I mean, interesting. And then as we come up, we're now on the hour. I'll just do this last story. But Spotify and Universal Music Group are striking a landmark deal allowing AI-powered fan covers. And so AI music's moving from infringement panic towards licensed participation. So fans can create an AI-powered cover of a song, right? So, you've got Elvis Presley singing the song. I'm going to do an AI cover of that, where I'll have Shania Twain singing it, or I'll have Britney Spears singing it, right? So can they do that remix within a rights management system? Apparently so. And so it's interesting that now we're starting to see rights management become realistic around a lot of the AI stuff, at least in music. Could I do the same thing in writing? Could I say, oh, you're a famous author of a book, right? You wrote, maybe you wrote Avatar, right? You wrote the book Avatar and those series. Could I do a cover? Could I do a fan version outside of that and get it licensed, right? We've seen this week the publication of a fan print for one of the Star Wars that's just releasing my brain featurette. Yeah, so they did a Star Wars cut of one of the series and a whole series of series and wrapped the whole thing together. Just really, really interesting. So maybe that becomes a rights thing moving forward. I don't know. It could be. Anyway, we're at the top of the hour. Let's close out because it's been a super interesting week with a lot of stuff happening. And yeah, so let me pop this up and we'll close. The thing I keep coming back to is this: AI is not becoming powerful in one clean direction. It's becoming powerful everywhere at once. It's pushing on infrastructure. It's pushing on budgets. It's pushing on work. It's pushing on trust. And now with agents, AI agents, is starting to push on control itself. The real AI shock that came out of the last 7 days is not the machines can write, code, search, or summarize. We already knew that. The real shock is AI is becoming expensive enough to reshape infrastructure, useful enough to reshape work, autonomous enough to acquire new controls, and risky enough to test public trust. This last 7 days was not really about AI getting smarter. It has. It was about AI becoming more consequential. Across the headlines, we saw power move into government frameworks, military planning, financial rails, agentic payments, and enterprise decision systems. We saw infrastructure stop being invisible, with chips, data centers, water, heat, nuclear power, and rural communities pulled into the center of the AI story. And we saw belief itself becoming unstable as chatbots remember us, avatars copy us, AI companions comfort us, synthetic music moves us, and people begin asking machines not just for answers, but for meaning. So I think the deepest story from the last 7 days is this: AI is no longer sitting outside human life as a tool we occasionally use. It's moving into the rails of our very civilization, the systems that decide, transact, recommend, filter, remember, simulate, and sometimes act before we even notice. But that doesn't mean the future's already lost. I think it means that this moment for all of us is to become more conscious, more awake, and more deliberate about what we're building. The hopeful part I see is that we humans still have agency. We can demand transparency. We can design better governance. We can protect identity, dignity, trust, and human judgment. And if you want to understand where AI and even blockchain integrate with that are really moving, watch the rails, not the headlines. This is the new operating reality that we now live in. And I think the leaders who understand that first will make much better decisions than the ones still treating AI as a tool rollout. And remember, we're not predicting the future, we're debugging it together. Thank you very much. Appreciate everyone listening today, and we'll see you again next Tuesday. Stay tuned. And if you'd like to give us a quick donation, feel free. And together we'll talk again next week. Thanks so much.